is what I call this social cultivation. That if we humor them, if we treat them like a celebrity, they're going to give. We keep forgetting there's a value proposition. What am I going to invest to achieve what end? And if you don't start suggesting either the level of investment and toward what end, this thing will go on forever and yield no fruit, no philanthropic fruit whatsoever. So we're on the same page, but I think I'm simply trying to make sure, in those polls that we put there, that we find the balance between flipping over the dollar to get a dime and the Hansel and Gretel deep dark woods of cultivation.
That's great. I appreciate it. Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Today we have Jim Langley with us again. In today's episode, we really dig down on some questions I've had for a long time about his approach to gift facilitation and where it overlaps and differs with the classical moves management approach many of us have been trained in and have found to be very effective in many ways. Let's get back into the conversation. When I think about the metrics that I worked under, obviously there was the close, your close, your solicitation, all those things. And you've posted a lot. You've said a lot about, the problem with the term close and how we think about that.
Yeah. Didn't you come to terms, or Thomas, was it your magical beans that made them just sort of submit? You were such a brilliant closer. You came in and said, "We got to do this, folks." I said, "Yes, sir, Tom." Didn't you really come to terms? You didn't close. Two parties came to terms.
That's right.
You see where I'm going? Now, I
do.
realize these become industry phrases. We all use them. All I'm saying is now, as things are more perilous, as we see this trust eroding and support eroding, wouldn't it be wise for all of us to adhere to the principles, but come up with a language that is more suggests this is a regenerative process, this thing called fundraising, not a purely extractive one.
And so would you still, as a leader, would you still look at things like yield rates on asks and close rates in terms of, to evaluate the quality of a fundraiser's work?
Yes, but in context, right?
In context,
yes. Right. So yes, you need metrics. I agree with it. You cannot improve anything if you don't measure it. You can't learn if you don't. You have to. But the problem is, I have a system called vital signs assessment. So what I'll go in is just look at the last 5 years by source, but then I will look at the rates of attrition. I'll look at how many donors have given 1 to 5 years, how many 5 to 10, et cetera, all the way out. And what I'll go in is say, all right, something's happening where you're losing volume. You have reported dollars up and donors down for 20 straight years. I think you may need to not just look at the metrics you mentioned, but you better start looking at retention, right? So that make sure that whatever you're doing in 1 year is not at the cost of what could be done in 5, 10, or 15 years. If you're retaining donors and you have a large quotient who have given 20 years or more or 30 years or more, I say, God bless you, you're doing something well, and keep, I'll get out and keep doing what you're doing. But Thomas, you realize how rare that is?
I'm sure.
That's the thing, as you see. So now these places that have posted dollars up and been content with that are facing a rude awakening that what worked for the last 10 or 15 years is not going to work, because here's what we see. We raised more money than last year, very often thanks to one gift or 8 gifts. We've become dependent on fewer people when we look at the average age. So we see, for instance, a campaign, this is no overstatement, a campaign that raised hundreds of millions of dollars, where 95% of the support came from 20 families.
Yeah.
And the average age of the person heading that family is over 70. Is that good business?
Doesn't seem like it.
No. So how do we, keep all the good things from the sharpest fundraising practice, but then say, let's now make sure that we don't so obsess about next year's results that we kill the seed in the soil. So what is that breakpoint? I have no perfect answers, but I do think that we have to be simply better listeners. And we have to think in terms of fundraising metrics, at least in 2-year terms. Because as someone who did, in your parlance, close gifts, you know that many of those major gifts took longer than a single year.
Oh, geez, yeah,
Right?
that's right.
Sometimes took multiple years. So now, as we're going to evaluate the Thomases of the future, can we look at performance not only in a single year, but in at least a 2-year? And can we look at not only what gifts you closed, but how many of the donors you closed in previous years gave again?
Yeah.
Because that could greatly redound to your benefit to say, Thomas is not only closing, but he's saving and preserving and inspiring relationships such that Thomas's donors are coming back and giving again.
Yep.
The repeat giving should redound to your credit much more than single giving.
Well, that's a really great point that I don't think we, I'm always thinking about metrics and what can we measure to help us get to the heart.
Right.
And that metric right there.
Yeah.
It would take some work to get, but I know it could be done. And I'm thinking through in my head how to do that,
Yeah.
With a given CRM.
There's a contribution you can make to the field is figure out that metric.
Yeah. Well, I'll think about that one. Now, but what you're getting at though, kind of, gets at the question of evaluating, a potential hire.
Yes.
As you're talking to your clients, and you're advising them about evaluating candidates.
Yes.
There's many fundraising professionals who are great at talking and being relational, but very bad at progressing the dialogue to a point of decision.
That's right.
And I chose my words carefully to make sure I didn't say close there. But how do you counsel your clients in this? What types of questions can help them suss out someone who's not qualified to do this work?
Yes. So you've posed, I think, two extremes, but you focused on one is the relationship builder who never closes. And I'm going to remind you of the closer who never builds the relationship, right?
Yes,
so we're going to try to get that happy medium. And there you go. There is a good line of questioning right there is, talk to us about success, not just annual success in fundraising, but sustained success and striking the balance between building the relationship and ultimately bringing a process to conclusion, right? Those two have to be there. So I am with you in the sense that I have attacked the concept of cultivation. I go in and I look at organizations. I go, well, where are your donors? And it's invariably, Thomas, something like this. We've got 10 or 15% who we are going to put through a discovery process or qualification process. They're new and we're getting to know them. There's 10 or 15% that we hope to close or, reach commitment or come to terms with. And I go, where are the rest of them? In cultivation. And so I've come to label this the Hansel-and-Gretel deep dark woods of cultivation, into which many a prospect has been led and never a donor has escaped, right? They're in an oven somewhere, right? We're fattening up till they're ready to eat. There's something terribly wrong.
Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Academy. Are you a nonprofit leader who's new to fundraising? Are you feeling crushed by your fundraising goals and not sure how to find success? My online class, crafted from my 25 years of experience and more than 5,000 donor meetings, Abundant Vision Academy will give you the confidence and understanding you need to start building relationships with donors and having gift discussions in just 110 minutes. You'll get 14 videos covering all the topics you need to find success in fundraising. You can take it at your own pace and can watch as many times as you'd like. This is one of the best deals in fundraising continuing education you can get today. To make sure you get off to a strong start in 2024, I'm offering a 50% discount to anyone signing up for my course this spring. That's a $375 value. Enter the coupon code SPRING2024 at checkout to claim your 50% discount. That's SPRING 2024. Head on over to thomas-dauber-s-school.teachable.com and click on Abundant Vision Academy to get your discount today. The link is in the podcast description.
So I have found donors in cultivation for years. When I was a vice president, I'd come into a place and I'd look at these people and go, how is this happening? And I'd go sit down with them and say, you've been cultivated by multiple parties. Where's your heart? Where can we focus? Because we'd really love to have this culminate in something that both of us would be proud of. And we'd find that either they weren't prospects or they weren't as good a prospects as people thought because nobody called the question, right? So what I want to do is turn this open-ended social cultivation into something more practical, which is about an alignment of purpose. So I will argue the way you get rid of cultivation is to test an idea on somebody very early in the cycle. Not a proposal, a concept. Would you be interested in this area? And then you put a concept paper, or you then put your next interaction is to, if they say yes, theoretically, well, let's meet a champion. Let's look at a pending initiative. How does this strike you? You see where I'm going?
Yes.
You're trying to make it progressive, but not through wooing for wooing's sake, but to say, have we found a concept that resonates with you? And, can we now move that concept down the track either to where you bail out and go, I'm not ready to give, or you go, yeah, you've answered all my questions. I like the people who are leading the charge and I'm on board. So you call the theoretical question early and you have a set of measured steps that move jointly. You and the donor move from general awareness to a specific understanding and a specific commitment, from an intellectual appreciation to an experiential engagement. So what we like is this graduated set of phases where you are asking permission each time. Are you ready to go to the next step? And then you have the soft ask, which I suspect you may have used in your,
Totally.
are you ready for us to put a proposal in front of you? So we like the preview and permission way, but you see it's phased. And you can go in and say, you put a concept in front of them 6 months ago. What happened? You start to then be able to say to the fundraiser, they're stuck in a particular phase. So either we back burner them or we try this. You see, it is much more prescriptive. It's much less. What you and I both dislike is this wooing people into philanthropic submission. It doesn't open-endedly.
Right.
Just, I'm going to smile at you so many times and take you out for coffee so many times. You're just going to go, Thomas, I love you so much. I've decided to give $1 million. That too is mythical.
That's right. Or even worse, taking them to, a Georgetown basketball game or an Ohio State football game, right?
Over and over and over.
I have never closed a gift because I took someone to a football game, no matter how good the seats were.
Never. Or any of those wine and dine, never, right? Isn't this?
So you wrote in one of your posts,
yes. Now you
a philanthropic facilitator acts as a broker seeking to align institutional aspirations with philanthropic convictions.
Yes.
However, if philanthropic facilitators work in organizational cultures that think their job is to cause philanthropy to reign only in the buckets they put out, they are reduced to the role of artifactual fundraiser. Appointments are harder and harder to secure. When secured, it is harder and harder to convince donors to take the next step toward conforming to organizational expectations.
Yes.
When that happens, fundraisers begin to lose faith in organizations they are representing, even though they continue to believe in the cause. Donor attrition fuels fundraiser attrition and vice versa.
Yes.
Therefore, any training done in the name of fundraising should include anyone in the organization parking expectations on the advancement operation. So I just felt like this was so well worded and
Yeah, you
so
see,
on point.
it's the balance I'm trying to get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Um, it, I know the nonprofit world well enough to know that many fundraisers are working in exactly
Yes,
that type of environment.
exactly.
And but at the same time, many of us don't have the luxury of being able to be picky about where we're working.
Yes.
What advice would you give to individuals that might help them begin to change the philanthropic culture of
Mm.
the organization?
Yeah, well, there is the $64 billion question right
Mhm.
there, right? Because you can imagine the thousands of people I hear from as a result of my post, right? And some I hear from on LinkedIn, and some write me privately. And so, when I post, I am confident that it isn't Jim Langley's opinion, but it's the shared opinion of hundreds of people I've heard from, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and also take you back to your fundraising career, even at a great institution, when you were working with strategic pillars from what was called a strategic plan that wasn't particularly strategic, you, Thomas, were improvising within that plan.
That's right.
You were listening and going close enough to our strategic pillar. You were doing that matchmaking. You wouldn't have
Mhm.
been as successful. So there is this little bit of innovation of taking the strategic pillars more as a suggestion and
Mhm.
then trying to find the closest approximation to the donor and start there. But to your question, I do think that all of us, with me, what we have to unlearn is we can't please all the people all the time and still have a satisfying career. So there comes a time where we have to, let's say when looking for a job, to say, here's my school of thought. Here's what I will bring to you. And here's what I want to warn you against. I do want to be your champion. I do want to be an effective fundraiser, but my career has taught me, these are institutional attributes that will get in the way of fundraising. Will you work with me on those, right? Or as you gain credibility in an organization, we have to be more assertive and come forward and say, I could raise even more money if we had X, Y, or Z.
Well, Jim, this has been an awesome conversation. I am so looking forward to next week when we continue our dialogue. I am certain our listeners will especially appreciate your thoughts on how to better engage entrepreneurs. Well, if this conversation has been helpful to you, please remember to subscribe to this channel to make sure that you don't miss some of our future episodes. And also, please take 5 seconds to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider to help get the word out about this show. As always, I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together toward major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.